I have here 6 meters of Ankara print, but we'll be using 3 meters for this top. I have my basic bodice block for a medium size. I also have the front contoured bodice, which is what I'll be working with, and I've traced it out on a fresh pattern paper. I'm using the contoured bodice because all excess has been removed around the neck area, and this will give a more flattering fitting when done. For those who like to draft directly on the fabric, we'll be doing that as well, but first we'll start with the patterns. From the center front of the bodice, I went out by 5 inches for the wrap extension, and at that point I went up by 2.5 inches for the width of my belt. Then on the neckline I went out by 3.5 inches for my neck width, and with these points I will draw in the V neckline. Before I draw the neckline, I will unpin the contoured bodice. I've already transferred it to the pattern paper. Then at my bust point, I will go up by 1 inch to have more coverage. And with the slight curved side of my ruler, I will draw in my neckline. So guys, this is what my neckline looks like. Next, we are going to transfer the waist darts to the bust dart. So I will slash open the bust darts to the bust point and close in the waist darts. I've closed in the waist dart and I've added fresh paper on the bust dart to enable us redraw our dart legs. I'll find the midpoint, and here I have 3 inches, so the midpoint is 1.5 inches. Then on the bust point, I will go out by 1/2 inch and redraw the dart legs, so that when I sew up this dart, it will not fall directly on the tip of my bust. I have redrawn the dart legs. I will go ahead and close in the dart and draw in my side seam. You can see how the bodice is shaped. This is because the female body is full of curves and you can only achieve this using that. This is exactly the same fitting you're going to get when you transfer this pattern to your fabric. So I'm just making holes on the dart there with my pins to enable me drawing the side seam of the dart. You can do this with your tracing wheel if you have one. My basic bodice is for a sleeveless top or dress, so at the armhole I'm going to come down by 1/2 inch and redraw my armhole curve. I think I later came down again by 1/2 inch, making it 1 inch. I also want to mention that I reduced the width of the shoulder from 4 inches to 3.5 inches when I sewed up the bodice, so you might as well put that into consideration if you're making a puffy sleeve like the one in this tutorial. This was all I did for the front bodice. I'll go ahead and add my seam allowance. At the side seam I used 0.75 inch seam allowance. At the armhole, shoulder and neck area I used 1/2 inch. And at the hem of the top I used 1.5 inches because I wanted the lining hidden when I attach it. I'll go ahead and cut out my pattern. I have retraced my back pattern on a fresh paper and transferred all important points. On the waistline, I'm going to place 1/4 of my waist measurement with no dart allowance. On the armhole level, I'll come down by 1/2 inch just like we did on the front bodies. On this new level, I will place 1/4 of my bust measurement, and with this new point, I will draw in the back armhole curve and the side seam. I will measure the side seam of the front, excluding the darts, and place that on the side seam of the back and draw in the waistline. I'll measure the shoulder width of the front and place that on the shoulder width of the back and redraw the back neckline. So guys, that's all I did for the back. I'll go ahead and add seam allowance just like I did on the front. Remember, the back pattern is called unfold. I have cut out my pattern for the front and the back. The seam allowance at the hem of my top is 1.5 inches because I want the lining hidden when I attach it. You can as well cut your lining the same length as your top, but if you want your lining hidden, do not forget to fold in the seam allowance when you're cutting out your pattern to prevent shortage of fabric on the sides. The seam allowance of my side seam is 0.75 inch and every other side is 1/2 inch. For those who will be marking directly on the fabric, I have marked the center front of my bodice and the hemline of my top. I'll go ahead and place the length of my top, and for this I'm using my half length. So you go ahead and place how long you want your wrap top to be. Mine is 17 inches. I'll square out this point and this line is going to be my shoulder line. On this line I'll place half of my shoulder measurement and a neck width of 3.5 inches. With my tape placed on 1/2 of my shoulder, I'll come down at 9 inches, the armhole level for a top with a loose sleeve for a medium size. The armhole levels for the other sizes will be on the screen. These armhole levels are standard. Feel free to determine how low you want your armhole to be, but don't go lower than these numbers. I will square out this point, and with my tape still on 1/2 of my shoulder, I will come down at 1.75 inches for the shoulder slope, and with my tape on the center front line, I will come in by 2.5 inches on the neckline and connect these 2 points. If you have watched any of my basic bodice tutorial, you will understand why we are connecting the shoulder slope to the 2.5 inches instead of the 3.5 inches neck width we are working with. The reason is to establish a good shoulder slope and remove any excess, as you will not be able to contour when you draft directly on the fabric. I also want to state that the 1.75 inches shoulder slope works on all sizes. With my tape on the shoulder line, I came down at 10 inches for my neck depth, so you place your neck depth here, and with the slight curved side of this roller, I will connect it to the 3.5 inches neck width and draw in my V neckline. You can see the excess between the shoulder line and at the point where the V neckline touches the shoulder slope. If you connect the shoulder slope directly to the 3.5 inches neck width, this excess will be included in your top and you have gaping around your neckline. So this is a good way to reduce gaping around your neckline for someone who drafts directly on your fabric, as you will not be able to contour your bodice. With my tape on the shoulder line, I will come down at 11 inches for my bust point level. So you place your bust point level here and square it out. On the armhole level, which is also the bust level, I will place 1/4 of my bust measurement plus 1/2 inch for ease. This 1/2 inch is borrowed from the bust measurement of the back because we are more fuller in the front. I will square down that point. On that line, I will go down 2.75 inches for my bust dart level. From that 2.75 inch point, I will go down again 1 inch for my bust dart intake. On the bust point level, I will place half of my bust span of 4 inches. I will go out by 1/2 inch and connect it to the bust dart so that when I sew up this dart, it will not fall directly on the tip of my bust. On the waistline, I'll place 1/4 of my waist measurements with no dart allowance, and with the bust dart closed, I will draw in my side seam. For the front armhole curve, I'll find the midpoint from the shoulder slope point to the armhole level. I'll make a point there. That point becomes my front chest level, and on that line I will place half of my armpit to armpit measurement. With these 3 points, I'll draw in my front armhole curve. On the center front at the waistline, I went out by 5 inches for the wrap extension, and at that 5 inches point, I went up by 2.5 inches for the width of my belt. And with the curved side of my ruler, I'll connect that point back to the neckline. This is all there is to the front pattern. You go ahead and add your seam allowance according to your preference and cut out your pattern. Do not forget to walk along with your measurements and follow the steps. For the back panel, my fabric here is on fold and I have marked the length of my back top, which is my half length. So we'll go ahead and place the rest of the measurements. With my tape placed on the shoulder line, I will go down 10.5 inches for the back armhole level. I will square that out. With my tape placed on the shoulder line, I will place half of my shoulder measurement of 8 inches, the neck width of 3.5 inches, and the neck depth of 1 inch. I will square all these points and draw in my back neckline. With my tape placed on 1/2 of my shoulder, I will come down at 1.75 inches, and from the center back neckline, I will come out by 2.5 inches and connect these 2 points for my shoulder slope. On the armhole level, which is also the bust level, I will place 1/4 of the bust measurement minus the 1/2 inch we borrowed on the front bodice for ease. And on my waistline, I will place 1/4 of my waist measurement with no dart allowance. With these 2 points, I will draw in my side seam. For the back armhole curve, I will find the midpoint from the shoulder slope point to the armhole level. I will square out this point and this line becomes my back chest level. On this line, I will place half of my back armpit to armpit measurement, and with these 3 points, I will draw in the back armhole curve. So this completes the pattern drafting for the back panel. You go ahead and add your seam allowance according to your preference and cut out your pattern. I have cut out my pieces for the front and back panel with their respective lining. The only dart on this top is the bust dart. If you do not have a dart on your top is going to be very flat. I've also cut out this piece for the sleeves, which I'll be explaining as we go along. We'll go ahead and sew close the darts and assemble the pieces. I have sewn close the darts and you can see how the top is cupped around the bust area. I will take this to my ironing table and give it a good press. So guys, I've done that. You can see how the front panel is shaped already around the bust area. I also ironed down the seam allowance at the hem of this top for easy installation of the lining. I'll go ahead and assemble the front and back panels at the shoulder and at the side seams and overlock raw edges, and I'll do the same with the lining. I've attached the front and back panels at the shoulders and so close their side seams. I also did the same with the lining. Now we are going to attach the lining to the bodice. I'll be doing this off camera so that our video don't get too long. I'm going to start first at the neckline with the right side of the lining to the right side of the bodice. I will notch round the neckline to release any tension and top stitch the seam allowance to the lining. Then I'll move on to attach the lining to the hem of the bodice, and I will turn out everything from the armhole. So guys, I've attached the lining to the top and you can see how neat it is on the wrong side. You can also see the 1.5 inch seam allowance at the hem of the top made the lining to be properly hidden. I also reduced the width of my shoulder from 4.5 inches with seam allowance included to 4 inches because of the type of sleeve, so that when I attach the sleeve with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, the width of my shoulder will be 3.5 inches. So I have trimmed off on this sleeve. I'll go ahead and do the same on the other sleeve. I have this piece of fabric for the sleeve. The length of this fabric measured 51 inches, but I'll be using 50 inches, and the width measured 20 inches. This is the lining I'll be using to turn the sleeve. The upper part of this lining is the measurement of my armhole circumference, and the lower part is the measurement of the band of my sleeve. The width of this lining measured 8 inches, and this includes seam allowance to join to the shoulder and to turn the hem of the sleeve. From the top of the fabric, the part where I'll be attaching to the shoulder, I will come down at 3 inches, and from the hem of the fabric I will go up by 4 inches. The spacing of the smoking of this sleeve actually depends on you and what you intend to achieve. What I'm sharing is how I achieved this particular sleeve. Due to the nature of this fabric, I'm going to illustrate using the black lining. So guys, this black lining represents my fabric on the table with their dimension, and I just made illustration of what I mentioned earlier. From the top of the fabric where I'll be joining to the shoulder, I came down at 3 inches, which is what I'm showing you here. And at the hem, I came up by 4 inches because this lining will be taking it about 2 inches inside when we attach them together. Then on both sides of the fabric, I came in by 3 inches for seam allowance. I'm going to divide what's left in the middle into 3. I'm doing 2 layers of the smoking. This is how to calculate the width of fabric for the sleeve. The length of my sleeve is 11 inches and the width of my fabric is 20 inches. The length of my box measured 4 inches and the width measured 3 inches. So my box is in a rectangular shape. You can do square shape, 4x4, 2x2. You determine the size of your box. The width of my smoking is 3 inches and I'm doing 2 layers of that, making it 6 inches. Now the hem of my sleeve will be folded in by 2 inches. If I add that to the 6 inches, I have 8 inches already, plus 1 inch seam allowance to join to the shoulder and join to the lining at the hem, making it 9 inches. If I minus 9 inches from the width of my fabric, which is 20 inches, I am left with 11 inches. So whatever the width of your smoking is and the number of layers you're doing, you're going to add all that to the width of your fabric plus seam allowance, and any other extra thing you're doing to your sleeve, you're going to add all that to the width of your fabric and cut out. So guys, I have marked my boxes. The length of each box measured 4 inches and the width measured 3 inches. And I've marked these boxes from the beginning of the fabric to the end of this fabric. The space or the distance between the first box and the second box is 4 inches. Like I earlier mentioned, the spacing depends on you and on what you're trying to achieve. Now the length of the second box is also 4 inches by 3 inches. So this small space here measured 2 inches on my fabric. I'm going to leave it as part of what will be folded under the sleeve when I attach the lining. So I'm marking the boxes that I will smoke. When you mark the first box, the next box you will leave it and mark the one following, just like that. And on the second line, any box that is marked at the top, you will leave that space open and mark on the space that is not marked on the top, just like you see me doing in the video. And this is what I have marked on my fabric. I have marked the boxes from the beginning of this fabric to the end, and these markings are made on the wrong side of the fabric. I will go in with my needles and smoke these boxes. With your needle, you're going to pick at the corners of the box like you see me doing, and then knot it at the center, and that's it. And do not forget that this is done on the wrong side of the fabric. This is what your smoking will look like. I'm going to illustrate on a plain fabric for you to see it better. With your needle and thread knotted, you're going to pick a bit of the fabric at each corner of the square or rectangle, whatever shape you did, and you're going to move in the same continuous direction. Once you go around the square or rectangle, then you're going to draw the thread and knot in the center, just like you see me doing in the video. I'll go ahead and finish off the smoking off camera before we continue. So guys, I'm done smoking the sleeve and this is what I have. I'll go ahead and run gathered stitch at the top and at the hem of these sleeves and gather it. I have gathered the sleeve. I'll go ahead and attach the lining at the hem of the sleeve first. So guys, this is what I have. I'm going to stitch close the side of this sleeve all the way from the main fabric to the lining. I have done that. I'm going to turn out the lining like so and match it up to the fabric and pin in place. So guys, this is what our sleeve is looking like. It's looking so beautiful. Before I go ahead and attach the lining to the sleeve with a straight stitch, at the center back of this sleeve, you remember at both ends of our sleeve we came in by 3 inches. I'm going to unpin this and go in and pick one of the blocks and smoke it to tighten that area so that it doesn't look loose before I go ahead and attach the lining to the sleeve. I have found one of the blocks. I will go in with my needle and thread and smoke in that area so that it doesn't look loose. Then I will take it to my machine and attach the lining to the sleeve with a straight stitch. And voila, the sleeves are ready. I've attached the lining to the sleeve and this is what it's looking like. This sleeve is so cute. I'm going to pin one of the sleeves to the bodice to see how it turns out. So guys, I've attached one of the sleeves with pins to see what it will look like and this is what we have here. I'll go ahead and attach the other sleeve. I'll also attach our belt, which I've already prepared. The length of my belt measured 60 inches and the width measured 2.5 inches. So guys, this is our crop wrap top with Canadian Smoky Sleeve all done and dusted. You can see how beautiful and fluffy the sleeves are. I have zigzag stitch all the raw edges and this is what our sleeve looks like on the wrong side. I prepared my belt by stitching on the wrong side of the belt, then I turned it to the right side. Then at the edge where I attached to the bodice, I folded in the 1/2 inch seam allowance there and then pushed in the 1/2 seam allowance of the bodice inside the belt and top stitch at the edge there. If you enjoyed this tutorial and you find it helpful, do not forget to like, share, comment, leave all your questions in the comment section. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already and I'll see you guys in my next one. A bientôt!